Hello. Welcome to December's astrological update. I am Christina Luna and I'm live in Soul Nation sharing the theme for December and how we can best navigate and flow and leverage the cycles that are at hand this month. So I am so grateful to be here. The theme of this month is that we are holding a new seed of hope through discipline. And when I sit down to channel these themes for each month, I did this a year ago. Basically, a year ago, this time, I was sitting down, I was looking at the astrological cycles for 2022, and I was mapping and charting these themes, and they were building upon themselves for 12 months. I just felt this theme sort of evolving and evolving and evolving. And I knew that by the time we would reach December, there would be this really dynamic moment where we have forged this new ground with ourselves. We have come into right relationship with our sovereignty, our sustainability. We will have had some pretty strong conversations. We'll have broken codependent patterns, and we've got this new version of us that all we have to do is hold ourselves and hold that discipline with this new version of ourselves. And there are a couple of really important key moments in December that I'm going to talk about. I see that we have a couple people joining us. Hello. I am sharing the energy for December, and I'm talking about how this month our core message is to hold a new seed of hope through discipline. So as we start the month, we know that we have the sun in Sagittarius. That energy came in super like a breath of fresh air last week. Last year feels like a lot of time passes. It came in like a breath of fresh air, and I feel like we might have felt the turning of that fire from Scorpio season into this fire season. We may have felt it as early as 2 weeks ago, actually, because first we had Venus entering Sagittarius, and we had Mercury entering Sagittarius. And so before the sun actually got to Sagittarius on Monday or Tuesday of last week, we would have already started feeling like the tide is changing, like the energy is turning. And as the energy turned last week, so much new passion started rising, and we started actually having this hope, and we started seeing the path in front of us. It was as if we were able to come onto the shore after a long time at sea, and we were able to see, oh my gosh, okay, I can see where I'm going. In addition to this Sagittarian energy, we also had Jupiter moving direct, and Jupiter pulled back into Pisces, into the late degrees of Pisces, which was also a very watery moment. And so out of that water now, we're getting this vision. We're seeing our trajectory. We are understanding who we're becoming, and we're feeling really excited about that process. And even if the process, there's still some process in front of us, we still have about another month and a half or so of Mars's retrograde. Even so, we still have some of this process in front of us. We understand why the process is so important and exciting. And having that why piece is what I believe the gift of Sagittarius truly gives us. It makes us, it brings us fully into that awareness of, so why would I make this change? Why would I have these conversations? Why would I publish this book? Why would I show up? Why would I cultivate this new business? And with that why, it gives us like a second wind so that we can continue moving forward and have the discipline to carry us into the next cycle. So I'm just going to share a few other. Mercury is in Sagittarius as well. Venus is in Sagittarius. There's something really cool that I learned about Venus and Mercury recently. I was watching an astrological video by Adam Ellenboss, And if you don't know who he is, he's fantastic. He's a very philosophical astrologer, and I've studied with him. He's incredible. But he brought to my attention that during the eclipse season last month, during the Scorpio new moon solar eclipse that was in the end of October, and then during the Taurus full moon lunar eclipse in the first week of November, we had, first with the solar, we had a Venus conjunction with the sun, and then with the lunar, we had a Mercury conjunction with the sun. And both of those planets were in something called a cazimi at the time of the eclipse. That means that they were in direct alignment with the sun. So we wouldn't have been able to see them. They would have been completely encompassed by the light of the sun, which indicates that they were having a rebirth. So when those two planets begin to move a little bit faster and further away from the sun, which is what they're doing now, they will begin appearing to us as evening stars. And they're going to appear as evening stars together in the sky. Within the next week, we'll begin seeing them as evening stars. And what Adam Allenboss was saying is that these two planets, the planet of full receptivity, of beauty, of having harmony in our relationships and being in right relationship with our body, that's Venus, and the planet of beautiful transmissions, of receiving and communicating our messages, receiving downloads, receiving epiphanies, being understood and understanding. These two planets, they birthed something. They were inseminated with something on both the solar and the lunar eclipses. And as they've moved forward in their cycle to becoming a morning or an evening star, to becoming a display that we can actually observe, to actually bringing tangibility to their presence, they're doing that simultaneously. And this is going to represent something that was inseminated during the eclipse cycle, something emerging in our lives in a tangible way. And he was saying that it could come in the form of an announcement or a big decision that's made in our lives, or the way that I interpreted what he was saying was, I was reflecting on my own life, and I was reflecting on the entire year at large, and I was seeing that I'm about to take a massive turn in the role that I play with myself. I'm actually becoming a new character to myself. It's very personal, and it's exciting, and it feels like it's starting off a whole new cycle for my life. Like I've been in a certain identity for a long, probably a 18-year cycle, which it has to do with the nodes of the moon as well, which are on an 18-year cycle. So I've done an 18-year long cycle. All of us have done an 18-year long cycle, and we're about to emerge into a new cycle in 2023. And I am having this experience as coming into this new character that I'm playing in the world. And this character will be born, or this fruition, or this manifestation for all of us is going to be born between December 3rd and December 10th, when Venus and Mercury become evening stars on the horizon line. So pay attention to that. And it'll be shortly after the sun goes down, and it'll happen no matter where you live. So go ahead and look at the sunset between December 3rd and the 10th to witness those stars, and simultaneously witness in your life what is becoming tangible, what is becoming seen, what kind of announcements are you making for your life, or what kind of announcements are being made in the surrounding peer circle that you're in that's going to impact your life. And this won't necessarily be a surprise. It'll be something that is a resolution to a sustainability issue that became very apparent during the eclipse season. So I wanted to share that because I found that really beautiful, and it coincides with some of the other dates that I'm going to share with you. So in addition to that, I also want to share that this entire year, we have been facing fears and shame, repressed parts of ourselves in relationship to Cancerian issues. So Cancerian issues are issues around nurturing, issues around sometimes it's parenting, sometimes it's the way that we parent ourselves. Sometimes it's the role we take as a parent with people that we shouldn't take that role with. Sometimes Cancerian issues have to do with our innate sensitivity in the world and how we navigate our vulnerability. So it could be conditioned responses to vulnerability that shut people out or push people away or disallow people access to us. These are Cancerian conditions to a very vulnerable core. So this entire year, Black Moon Lilith has been moving through Cancer pretty much from January all the way to now. And so we've had a whole year of facing these types of issues. This could have been in the form of like, how do I nourish my children while simultaneously nourishing this new business that I have? Or how do I nourish my body when the needs of others in my life require me to sacrifice my own nourishment? So these types of fears and shames and repressed topics have been surfacing all year long. And this month is kind of like the buttoning up point of that. And I'm going to give you some specific dates about that as well, but I'm just kind of giving this overview. We are coming into a closure of that Lilith in Cancer cycle. It still has a little bit more movement until January before it will move into Leo. But this month, we're going to have an opposition of Black Moon Lilith to Pluto, which I feel is just drawing a very solid line that once we step over that line, we are never going back. We will have completed a disempowering pattern related to our shame and fear regarding our nurturing or vulnerability. So, is there anything else I need to talk about as an overview? No, I'm going to actually go into the dates now. So, I have a few dates. I posted a picture in Soul Nation, and I'll be sure I post a picture of these dates elsewhere so that everyone can kind of get an overview of these. But right off the bat, as soon as we enter into December 3rd, we're going to experience Neptune moving direct. Now, we experience Neptune retrograde for a large portion of the year, every single year, because our Earth kind of laps Neptune. It's when we're sort of going, it seems like we're going a little faster than that outer planet, and we're kind of on a curvature that's closer to the planet. So we're blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into the technical parts of this, but when Neptune begins appearing to be moving direct again, or it stations to move direct again, it does signify a shift in our awareness around our faith, in our awareness of what we used to be disillusioned by. So I feel that when Neptune is direct, we are faced with new things that align us to our ideal. They align us to a divine blueprint or a divine plan, or a multidimensional version of reality. And sometimes we can be so focused on that there are things in the external world that we don't see very clearly, that we can I want to say, the words I'm having are apologize for. Like, we can sort of say, oh, well, like, for instance, if there's a pattern in your relationship and you know why that person's acting that way, and even though it's not a pleasant experience for them to behave that way or to be in that pattern with you, you can see why they're doing it, and you can see the ideal of like what you would prefer, and you can sort of disillusion yourself and think, well, they'll eventually understand, or it's okay that they're doing that. Like there's this like kind of disillusioned rose-colored glasses that we can have sometimes when Neptune is direct. But after a long retrograde cycle, any of those disillusionments have become clear. We've sort of unhooked ourselves from them. And as we've unhooked ourselves from those disillusionments, we began seeing a lot more clearly. And like we could not ignore these details anymore. We could not deny these truths. We could not look the other way. And so the 3rd of December marks a moment when we can finally say, okay, I now know the truth. I understand what the ideal is, but I also know with real eyes what the gap between my ideal and my experienced reality, what that gap looks like, and what it will require of me to navigate that now. So with Mercury direct, or with Neptune direct, we can expect some forward momentum now that we've seen the reality. And that is a very good thing in my opinion, and it will help to shape the faith that we have in our ideals. It'll help to shape, like, I feel like it's like a opportunity to birth faith in the process. If there were times when we felt disillusioned, but having the real eyes of something has given us the maybe pain necessary to leverage ourselves to make change, then we'll actually have increased our faith in the process of disillusionment, pain, and change. I hope that makes sense. To me, like I can totally feel how I've navigated that in my own life, and perhaps maybe this is a good time for a short like anecdote. Like there was a pattern with my daughter. There was a pattern that I was experiencing where I could see that the behavior she was exhibiting wasn't necessarily ideal. It wasn't the way that I would love for our relationship to be. And I understood why she was doing it. And because I understood why she was doing it, I had a lot of compassion for why she was doing it. And so I wasn't very strong in my resolve to change that behavior or to bring her into a new behavior that was more empowering for her, right? Because I was sort of deluding myself in believing that it would correct naturally as she matured, as she develops, that'll correct naturally. She won't be in that kind of immature pattern with herself for a very long time. But as she got older and as it became clear, like, oh, wait a minute, this is her kind of holding on to an old way that her and I behave with each other regarding discipline, right? Like, I'm like, how detailed should I get here? So basically what's happened now that Neptune's beginning to move direct and we're getting near the end of that, very, very recently, I have seen that that's kind of a holdover pattern from her earlier childhood development. And now that she's near 7, she's almost 7, she's smart enough to know, but she's smart enough also to leverage that old pattern. And I was seeing, okay, well, I understand why she was still doing it because it lets her off the hook, or it lets her sort of get her way without having to do the hard thing. While I can see and have compassion for that, it's more important than ever for me to hold my core and to be the person who holds her at a higher standard so that she can actually leverage herself and create that maturity for herself. And so I just started getting clear on this, and it's kind of wild that I didn't see it before. And I was thinking and talking with my partner about, gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't see this before. I didn't have this awareness, but now that I do, I'm so in awe of how my disillusionment, or how the illusion, that it stirred up enough energy that I was able to have a breakthrough and realize what was going on and then hold the new standard. And I'm willing now to do the hard work necessary, which essentially is just seeing her in her maturity and seeing the growth that she requires for herself to change the pattern. So that's kind of a long-winded thing, but I wanted to make this Neptune direct feel really relatable and tangible. And I am seeing your comments here. Yeah, it says, Emily says it makes total sense. And Gail says, this is me and my husband. Honestly, I sometimes say to myself, wow, you'll be amazing post 45, 45 years old with some growth and consideration for community. Yeah. And Emily says, I feel this for my husband too. It's like we saw it, but now we see it differently with a new standard. Absolutely. I'm also experiencing this personally. During the eclipse cycle that I see now is coming into fruition, my partner initiated a lot of change for his life. And I've been in the role of the initiating growth partner. I'm always like, all right, it's time to grow. It's time to grow. And this time I was sort of resting. I was the rabbit who was resting, and my partner was that like tortoise, and he just kept on going, and he grew past my comfort zone. And so a lot of the conversations I was having through Scorpio season were actually him reflecting to me his growth and me having to face the music of where I didn't want to grow. So now this new character that I'm bringing into my awareness with myself is actually a whole new growth cycle for me that was actually initiated by my partner. And even though I didn't choose, I essentially did choose this growth, but I didn't initiate it. Of course, I'm choosing to do it because I care deeply about growth and being connected with my partner and growing with my partner. So I am begrudgingly choosing this growth, and it wasn't comfortable for me at all because it wasn't like my autonomous soul that was choosing to initiate it, right? So this is a cycle that we might also be experiencing, and the fruition of that would be the discipline, the self-discipline that we bring to our lives to like hold the line, to actually cultivate that growth, and to remember why we're doing it in the first place, and let that why be the seed of hope that brings us through this cycle. So Emily's saying, yes, that she's literally facing this thing as well, like right now, and she's not comfortable with it. This is landing so deep, literally tearing up. But seriously, I know, me too. It has been wild. And I feel, right now I'm speaking to a room of women. And I think part of the reason why it could be that at this moment, the masculine is creating more of that leadership, or maybe initiating some of that uncomfortable growth, is because of Mars's work in Gemini. And we're just about halfway through that Mars retrograde cycle. And so we still have until the 12th of January to really work this and to find a new level of trust in the masculine principle within ourselves and within those that hold that masculine principle in our lives. So that's December 3rd. As we get to December 6th, we will feel the shift of Mercury into Capricorn. And Mercury is going to retrograde in Capricorn, and it's going to begin a cycle of retrograding in Earth signs for the next year. When Mercury retrogrades in the Earth signs, it is, in my experience, it's very different than your typical Mercury retrograde cycles where technology acts a little wonky, and it's where we have to kind of read all of our things and make sure that all the connections are made properly. I feel that when Mercury's in Capricorn, especially this year, we're being given a preview so that we can see and reconsider the way that we use our tangible resources. We are going to feel, see, sense with all of our earthly facilities where we where we put our money where our mouth is. We will be investing in what we believe in. We will be like, it's especially interesting that this is falling around a season where we have a tendency to buy a lot of material things. This year, I feel everyone is going to be putting their resources into things where they know it has sustainability, longevity. It'll create experiences that the entire family values. It will not be traditional in the sense that, well, if this kid gets 5 presents, then this kid has to get 5 presents. It'll be more specific to the practicality for each person. And I'm only using that, the Christmas kind of present giving, as a metaphor. Really, every single part of our lives, how we allocate our time, energy, focus, presence, all of it. Like even the way that we partition time off for our sleep, all of that is being taken into account, because this year we're so very aligned with our why, and we're having a great deal of discipline with ourselves. We're holding this beautiful vision, and we want every part of us to be in integrity with that vision, including our behavioral patterns. And Mars is instructing us on what those new behavioral patterns ought to be in alignment with ourselves. So Mercury is just the kind of translation of that in Capricorn, and that's starting on the 6th. And oh, let me backtrack just one day. For some reason, I have my dates just flipped. On the 5th, you know how I talked about Cancer and all of our fears and shames around our nurturing? Well, on the 5th of December, that's when Lilith will be exactly opposite Pluto. So Pluto is down in Capricorn, and Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, and Pluto is about to complete its Capricorn cycle. It's going to move into Aquarius in 2023, then it's going to pop back into Capricorn and then move back into Aquarius. It's going to do this a couple of times over the course of the next 3 years, but it's going to give us these kind of shock waves as it enters into Aquarius. And I believe that this Lilith Pluto opposition in these final degrees of the Cancer Capricorn axis point, this axis point is the axis point of the parent-child relationship. It is having us consider the wounds of the mother, the value of the father, the ending of old traditional gender roles in parenting. It's having us look at the way that we model parenting that we learned or resisted in our own parents. So we're ending a legacy cycle that in one metaphor, I have someone I'm working with right now, and the working metaphor we have is that the new legacy that she's building for her family is that of a beautiful swimming pool. She wants to have this backyard swimming pool that her entire family can gather, and everyone can enjoy each other and just be at ease and swim together, and swim in their connectivity with each other. But what she's had to do over the course of the last 15 years or so is uproot this old family legacy of sacrifice and like servitude and scapegoating the child, or it's like this old family legacy that there was a lot of sacrifice involved, and it was like the giving tree that just gave and gave and gave until it was completely dilapidated. So she's actually leveled that tree in her world, and there's just a stump that's left in the yard where she's going to put that pool down. This is all metaphor, mind you. So this is not true. She's not actually putting a pool in, but the metaphor is apt because we're all doing something like that to a certain degree in our lives. We are clearing out an old legacy of the way we've parented ourselves and how we're parenting our businesses, our relationships, our children. It's all related. The mommy, daddy, baby triad exists in all creative forms, where there's the masculine energy, the feminine energy, and the created from those two forces. And so this moment on the 5th of December is a moment where we get to see viscerally and finally cathartically end some sort of old nurturing legacy cycle. And this will never happen again. This is a moment that is very unique, and I believe it's such a beautiful opportunity because of what we're going to be bringing into the world next year, that we're going to be like finally clear of this old tree stump that will be completely inviting the space for this beautiful family swimming pool that we want to cultivate in this new earth that we're all a part of materializing. So that is going to be around the 5th. Keep it on your calendar. I don't expect that it will be traumatic, although I do think that there will be an experience, a circumstance where we will be able to see that we totally are acting differently. The old version of us would have acted one way, but the new version of us is in so much grace, and it has really cultivated a new way of being in relationship. So this is, and I have so helpful to hear this, exactly what I need. Yes, that's right. And you're talking about he is initiating some uncomfortable growth, and I've seen a new perspective listening to this, to hold space for this for him and let him do it despite it waking me up to the work I need to do within myself. I know. And then I have from Gail, thanks so much, Christina. Also makes sense. Sorry, I have to run and get the kids. No problem, Gail. Okay. So then the next big date, we are going to have a full moon in Gemini on the 7th of December. This full moon will be highlighting Mars's retrograde activity. So we will, it feels like a checkpoint. Like we've reached the halfway point of Mars's retrograde. And in an earlier conversation today, I was talking about this bridge. If the Mars retrograde was like a bridge, and the beginning of it was like, oh my gosh, I have all this work to do. It feels like walking uphill on a bridge. I believe the halfway point will feel like it's finally leveling off, and we're starting to see the horizon line of where we're going, and it's clear. The journey is becoming a little easier, and we're able to see further. And even though there's still a little bit of work to do, it's almost like, oh, good, we got this. I totally see why we're doing all this work. Excellent. So I see that full moon in Gemini being like a really like high point checkpoint for the evolution that we're going through right now. And then Venus will move into Capricorn on the 9th. Venus retrograded in Capricorn last year. And while Venus did that, we completely realigned our value system. And maybe we even opted for more practical hairstyle, more practical way of living our life, more practical, like I even decided to move, like more practical, more measurably in alignment with the legacy that we'd actually like to experience on the planet. So while she did that last year, we shifted our trajectory in 2022. And I believe that as she's visiting through Capricorn this year, we will be able to really receive the tangible like rewards or nuggets. Capricorn is very usually it's related to, I want to say, like measurable worth. Sometimes that means money. Sometimes that means like accumulated trophies or accumulated titles or accumulated success that proves that you've been in alignment with your legacy and mission. And it's like how you made a difference. So as Venus is moving through here, I think that we'll get to see how we've made a difference in our lives, how we've proven to ourselves that we changed our values, we lived in accordance with those values, and now we're receiving the beautiful relics of making those changes. So I essentially, I'm trying to say, I think it's going to be a beautiful season. And then on the 20th, Jupiter will move into Aries. Jupiter will move through Aries very quickly and into Taurus, by midway through next year. So this Jupiter in Aries, I actually feel is we had a little bit of Jupiter in Aries earlier this year. That was the first preview. And I think moving this way, we're going to feel like we're really coming into ourselves. We're going to feel like we're really being reborn. It's again, it's in that trajectory of, okay, I'm making an announcement. I've made a decision with myself. I am walking my walk and talking my talk. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm practicing what I preach. I'm holding my discipline. I am, I'm on my trajectory, and I'm walking into 2023 with my head on my shoulders and my feet on the ground. I actually feel like Jupiter is going to say, and yes, you are. Like, yes, you are. You got this. Yes, you are. You're showing up. Like, this is that you've created more space for your soul. You are coming into this body. You are living this life. This is your life. And with all of that, like, to me, it feels exciting because I know that the North Node is moving into Aries in July of 2023. So, I've been doing all these 2023 readings, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so miraculously beautiful that these transits set us up in perfect time to gracefully grow into ourselves, to gracefully make the incremental shifts that change and create and render our entire reality. So I see this on December 20th as like, it's sort of like, and it feels like the new year already, like, and we're here. This is so exciting. So I feel that excited energy coming right before the sun moves into Capricorn with the winter solstice. The sun in Capricorn is always a time where we look around and we take stock of what has been the legacy of this year. What are the results? How can I count my blessings? So the sun will move through Capricorn through the end of this year and into January, as it always does. And then on the 23rd, Chiron will move direct in Aries. So Chiron moving direct in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, these are both significant precursors and previews, or like even the beginning of a really strong kind of Aries moment next year. So pay attention to how you're feeling when we move into these spaces, because sometimes, like I've spoken before, that Aries energy is, since it's the first sign of the zodiac, and it kind of symbolizes the birth of the infant birth, the first emergence into the material world, the first steps of individuation. It can feel like it's a big announcement. It could feel like it's new. It can feel like it's this like new representation, but it also could feel very vulnerable. When babies are first born, they're completely helpless. Like, they're so dependent, and they're so fresh, and temperamental, and they're very like innately what they are. And so we could be feeling a little bit of this kind of vulnerability and freshness that starts this year. It could feel soft and tender, but just know that soft and tenderness is just reminding you that you're innately valuable, you're innately whole, you're innately perfect, the same way that a baby is innately perfect as soon as it enters the world, even before that. But we finally get to celebrate that when the baby enters the world. So here we are, we're becoming these innately perfect, just as we are, individuals. And in addition to that very newness, we have a new moon in Capricorn, which is, giving us like, okay, so what is it in this new moon that is going to set us up for experiencing our life from a place of innate value, of innate wholeness. I would imagine that if we could plant a seed during the new moon in Capricorn on the 23rd, to remember that like everything is exactly as it should be. Everything is innately perfect just as it is, that there's no process, there's no growth, there's actually nothing that is needed beyond just being. That growing a legacy from that intention will grow a completely different flavor of everything that we'll experience in 2023. And then on the 29th, Mercury will retrograde in Capricorn, and the first 3 weeks of January will have a Mercury retrograde flavor to it. And just as a heads up, I feel like we'll really start feeling those New Year vibes around the 20th, 21st, 22nd of January. So have a lot of grace for yourself in the beginning of January. Use it as a time to incubate your dreams and intend from a place of wholeness, knowing that in 2023, we are all going to be stepping into the fullest expression of who we are as individuals on a soul level, as a human in all the ways. And I'm very, very excited. If you want to hear more of my 2023 trajectories, I do have a channel on Telegram where I leave voice transmissions, a few times every week, sometimes multiple times a day, where I kind of just drop my downloads, and they're quite, it's not very formal, and it's really like in the heat of the moment when I'm feeling something or getting that transmission. And so I will go ahead and make sure that there's a link to that space if anyone wants to join me there. In addition to that, I have created some beautiful resources and materials for 2023 that I will be happy to share with you. I've got a planner that maps out all of the transits for the year ahead, and it has channeled guidance for each of the transits in addition to questions that you can ask yourself along the way that will open you up to even greater connection to the field of wisdom and the field of consciousness that is guiding us. So I have these planners. There's room for taking notes, and it also includes these like weekly initiations that every week of the year we have archetypal gates of initiation that we walk through, whether we know it or not. And it repeats every single year. And so I've included those initiations in the planner as well. So I'll make sure that I share those links. And again, like I feel that December is going to be brilliant. I feel that I always think that everything's the beginning, but I truly feel that it's going to have really exciting beginning vibes. And it's because we're fully connected at this point. Head, heart, mind, soul, emotional body, feet on the ground. We're actually making those tangible changes. We're moving the needle. We're seeing that our daily behaviors are creating new experiences. And all of that is happening in December before we even reach the new year. We're already tangibly rendering reality. So Emily says, yeah, she loves her planner. Thank you, Emily. I can't wait for you to see the one this year. It's completely redesigned, revamped. It's gorgeous. So I'll make sure that I share the link here. Are there any questions, or like, how are we feeling? Amazing. Thank you so much, Emily. I am very excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity to go live in the space. I'll be back next month, and of course, any questions, you can leave questions on this video or comments, and I will respond. It says, I feel great. Thank you. Always so helpful, both in the moment and to reflect on things as they come up. Yay. Thank you so much. All right. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.